All right. Thank you all again for joining my Proudofit podcast. Hope you all have been enjoying the last few podcasts that I've done, and hope you'll enjoy this one as well. For it will continue the weapons of mass destruction. This new age that we've came into has been a destructive age, with all types of weapons of mass destruction to destroy Western society, Western culture, Western history, and to make all Westerners bow to this cancel culture, which is not really a new age concept. It's actually been going on for possibly, I would say, at least 90 some odd years, possibly 100, because when you had the first industrial revolution, it caused many people to start thinking in new ways, doing things in these new ways that was contrary to everything that the old Western society and how they did things was totally different. And the things that the old society and culture cared about was totally different. The old culture cared about God, family, and wasn't so much worried about poor, because you would always have poor, you would always have poverty, but they thought that the churches back then would actually take care of the poverty-stricken and also the poor as well. But as time has went on, things have totally changed. And, when the 1930s started, you had just gotten pretty much through a depression, or you was coming into a depression, I should say. The greatest depression in Western society, and that kind of turned everybody's head to, how, everybody was so in love with how, everybody had this big influx of money, and then all of a sudden it was all pulled away, and it caused a very big void in the Western society at that time, where things that used to be getting taken care of was no longer being taken care of. Things that used to be important wasn't as important at that moment in time. And then on top of that, you had a world war about to break loose in just a few years after that, and which would propel culture and society into one of the biggest movements that's ever been. The biggest movement of marriage, children, money, success, excess. This is when you started having excess money, when you had one of the greatest times in Western culture at that point in time. And now, looking back, you can really tell that there was a great rebellion from the old view of things. A great rebellion of God, of country, of women, of children. Children were becoming exploited by, as we talked in this last thing, by the media, by movies. If you go back, you can hear about all the trials and tribulations of these young stars that were being exploited, pretty much doing most of the shows with hardly any pay to them, while these fat rats were getting super rich. And it really makes you understand why so many people these days hate the super rich. Even though I don't see a problem with being super rich. If you're super rich, that's you. But at the same time, back then, the exploitation of women, the exploitation of children was driving a really big rebellion. And then not only that, then you had a world war where women were having to do a man's job in America. And in that culture, many women turned to destructive devices in that time. Alcohol, cigarettes. A lot of that culture was canceling everything that women stood for in Western society. And also the men were starting, the men lost their jobs, they lost their families, they lost their friends, they lost their whole deal. So you had this culture that was just so many crazy good things were happening, but also so many crazy bad things were happening. And that culture just kept, one would feed off the other. And then these relationships and all these marriages and all these children being brought up in that time was giving way to a society that no longer cared about any value. They didn't have hardly any value system. The value systems were being torn down. Marriages were being thought of as throwaways. You didn't have to worry about, nobody wanted the marriage. They didn't feel like fighting for the marriage. So they just throw it all away. And that's pretty much what Western culture did. They threw not only their culture away, they threw away their society. They threw away the values of that society. They threw away the morals of that society. They threw away the truth that was in the society before them. They threw away every possible good thing that was coming out of the old. They threw it away. They didn't want to have nothing to do with it. They wanted it their way. They wanted their immoral life. They wanted their lies. They wanted their sex. They wanted their drugs. They wanted their ability to spend the money the way they wanted it to spend it. They wanted to, they chased after the world like it had never been chased after before. All this new technology made everybody in that culture want to just cancel everything because there was so much greed and so much jealousy towards what that person had. If a person had way more, then everybody was jealous of that person. It made where the rich and the poor, there wasn't too much between them. Before then, in the 1800s, when you walked into a rich man's house, you seen a bunch of furniture, nice furniture, but you didn't see TVs. You didn't see a bunch of washing machines. You didn't see electricity. So it was kind of everybody was equal at that time. But as the 1960s, 70s, and onwards, things just really spiraled into this cancel culture of the 10th power by now. Because in the 60s, yes, people were saying civil rights, all this, women's rights, rights. It was all about rights. And it was all about the women wanted to be able to be dependent from the man. But pretty much that was just lesbianism that didn't want to have to depend on a man. That was just lesbians wanting to be lesbians, wanting to live an immoral life without a man, and they had to have a means to do it. So, and the lesbianism came out of that 1930s where women was working in these factories and they felt manly. They felt, like, they were a man. They had these manly jobs and they were feeling like men, and they didn't have men. So I'm pretty sure a lot of lesbians came out of that era. And then as time went on, a lot of lesbians were marrying, but at the time they weren't saying they were lesbian, because obviously we know what culture that was at that time, a culture that did not respect gay and lesbians. And that culture of that spread, and it has spread throughout this country now. And men came back from the war. They didn't have women. What do you think they were doing? They were having homosexual sex. And that's where a lot of homosexuals come from, and that's a lot of where the pedophilia came from and everything else. That culture was a rotten culture. It was rotten to the core. It was rotten before it ever was conceived in the womb. It was rotten. And many people have lived very long lives in that culture that never told their families, never spoke to anybody about the evil that they chased after throughout that era, because there were so many things going on within them era, that 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and on upwards. And now we're at a cancel culture that is rotting. I mean, it is done rotted. It's done got rotten, and it's already rotted, but now it is rotting the country to its core. It is wanting the country to throw off whatever is left. It does not want the country to believe in a God. It don't want the country believing in a family. It doesn't want the country believing in real love. It wants you to believe in the worst possible things that you can imagine. It wants you to believe in tarot cards. It wants you to believe in magic. It wants you to believe in Satan. It wants you to believe in the New World Order. It wants you to believe in the media's lies. It wants you to believe in everything but truth and reality, because most people are not really living a real reality. They're living outside their means. They're living outside the window of God has for them. And that is where we are, though, with cancel culture. Cancel culture wants everybody to accept evil. This cancel culture wants everybody to accept their immorality living ways about things. They don't mind that this cancel culture doesn't mind playing house. They don't mind not never being married, but playing house. The cancel culture believes that, all of history throughout Western civilization has been evil, racist, corrupt, and totally, it's totally the opposite, really. I mean, nowadays, most people are bankrupt and they don't even know it. Most people are already going under and they don't even realize it. Because, first of all, they don't believe in God, so their life will never be blessed. And everybody around them will always be cursed. That's why there's so much cursed things now, because there's so many cursed people. Back in the older society and culture, people were blessed. If you just knew that God existed and knew Jesus existed, that was enough to bless your life. Nowadays, people are denying all truth. They deny all facts. No fact can prove to them that anything is truth. Nowadays, people say they have to see. I think that's why Jesus wants to come back, because he knows there's a society coming, and it's already here, that's only going to believe that he really exists through his showing them that he exists. But when he comes to show them, it's going to be too late for them. For they're already rotten. They're already rotten to the core. There's nothing good in them. This society that we're living in, this culture, is being massively destroyed by the cancel culture. Cancel culture is within the textbooks of American Western society. It's in the highest political platforms in the Western society. Cancel culture is there. It is everywhere. It is on every avenue, on every street corner. It is in your mass media. It is in your government. It is in your army. I mean, the army is canceling things that they you never would have suspected they would do, but it's there now. Police. Your police has cancel culture built into its system now. It is built to say everybody is a target. Everybody is an enemy. The financial system is built into the financial system now. Cancel culture is in the financial system. They have a certain way that they're going to treat certain people because of the cultural values that they feel they should have. And it's even in marriage itself. Now, cancel culture is in marriage. What you would think would never be accepted as a marriage is now being accepted as a marriage. Cancel culture is nothing but one thing: a total, blatant, the highest deception of Western society is cancel culture. There is nothing worse that a society can do than to cancel itself. It is almost like you're just taking a gun to your country and blowing its brains out. Because all a country has is its culture and its society. And what the society accepts, what the culture accepts, determines the path that society is going to go on. This society is being turned in a direction of down. This society, Western society, and when I say Western society, I mean everything: America, South America, Canada, Australia, Europe. All these countries are being turned in a direction, in a path of destruction. We were on a plane for the last 50, 60 years that was going pretty solid. Now our plane, our country, is on a path to the ground. To the ground, I tell you. Because the simple fact is the more we accept all this immorality that cancel culture wants us to accept, and all these lies that cancel culture keeps circulating within society, within the culture, it is destroying our youth. It is destroying our old people. It is destroying our middle class. It is destroying everything that ever was in America. And you see, like I said, 1960s, they threw everything out the window. They didn't want no part in God and in what their parents was and how their parents lived. Even though it was a simple life, they didn't want the simple life. They thought everything was so much more. They thought, they just believed so many lies. The devil lied to cancel culture and to that cancel generation. It lied, and it's still lying to them. That's why they are so distraught. They're so you can't even speak to them, because most of them believe so far from what Western society believes. And what I'm telling you is that you need to get off of the societal where society is going, or you're going to run yourself into a wall, into a path of destruction. Because that's all that this society can come to, is a path of destruction. Get out, get out, get out of it. There is nothing in this society that is worth trying to keep. This society is totally lost. It is totally bankrupt. It is totally destroyed. It is destroyed. This society is totally destroyed. And it is trying to destroy all that is left. You know, like how you would always hear the people that are angry and bitter. Nothing loves misery more than company. These people are miserable, and they're jumping everybody on that hell bandwagon because it's bound for hell. I mean, literally hell. I don't care if you believe in all this stuff or not. I'm telling you the truth. It's bound for hell. It's bound for hell. And there's so many people that are there trying to accept it and just say that it's just a part of life and it's just a part of our culture. I'm telling you, just as in Jesus' day, I'm telling you now, if you accept this culture, just like if you was to accept Roman culture over true Christianity, true value system, true understanding of God, you are bound for hell. This cancel culture is on a massive incline. It's going to continue in Western culture until either we, the people that actually believe still in God and still believe in truth and sanity of mind. You know, these people are insane. This country, this Western society has went totally into insanity. It is sickening. These women, these men out here they're living in this culture, I mean, fully living it, are on drugs. They're on pills. They are having massive health problems. They're having massive family problems. They're having financial problems. Why? Because they have accepted a culture that is totally bankrupt. And once you infiltrate it so much for so long, you are nothing but bankrupt with it. It has no heart. It has no love. It has no understanding of God. It hates all things to do with forgiveness and sin and understanding that the real human condition, and that the human condition can only be solved by one way, Jesus Christ, and getting a spiritual body that you need through Jesus Christ. I hope, if anything you take from this message, if you listen this long, I hope you will, that I can be no clearer to tell you that if you keep your sons and daughters in this society, that they will be nothing but bankrupt. This place is, the heart of this country is hard. It is hard as a rock. The minds of the people are so delusional that they don't understand what God is, nor do they understand what this life is about. They are so delusional. They are so mentally incapable of understanding the simplest of ideas, that this life, this society, the society which they live in, they are the ones that lead it. Society leads itself. And if it's not leading itself in the right direction, there is only two options, either up or down. This society has totally went down, and it's about to hit the ground, and everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. It is about to totally be destroyed. Not even by a true weapon of mass destruction, but just the weapons of mass destruction that nobody is even thinking about. Mass media, this cancel culture I'm talking about now, these government agencies, they're being weaponized to destroy Western civilization, to not stand up for the value systems of Western civilization, to not stand up for true patriots, but for foreigners, for people that have no interest but to destroy this country. You know, we have spent more money in Iraq. We have spent more money in Afghanistan, Africa, and everywhere else except our own societies. You know, we have totally allowed our societies, and I'm going to tell you why they've allowed these societies to be destroyed. Detroit, totally a destroyed, bankrupt place. California, totally destroyed, bankrupt place. Philadelphia, totally bankrupt, totally a destroyed place. New York, bankrupt, almost destroyed as we speak. Many other places just like them, totally destroyed. You say, why? Because you allowed the intolerant into power. You allowed the ones that hated Western culture into power. You allowed the worst possible people to rule over you only because you wanted your own immoral lives to not be fooled with. You wanted to do your drugs. Now look at us. The students in those cities that I've named are totally destroyed. You can say it just like God has said it many times in the Bible. You can look it up. It would have been better off if they wouldn't have never been born than to be born in those cities. Because the simple fact is, they're all being destroyed by drugs, by the poverty, by no care from anybody, no care. And most of these places are racially destroyed, racist to the core, racist so much so that they would rather bankrupt every white business owner in them states than to have the tax money that comes from them that could benefit them, because the simple fact is they don't want any whites in their neighborhoods. They wouldn't want any whites in their states if they could help it. Look at Detroit. I mean, I bet you if you looked at the populations of most of these cities that I'm naming, it is almost totally black. And why is that? Because they would rather have totally bankrupt, corrupt areas than to have nice white people living in those areas. They don't want whites in those areas. It is a cancel culture. They are canceling white Christianity culture. They are canceling it. They don't want it. The churches in those areas, totally abandoned. Totally, if they're not abandoned, they're on their way out. Most are out. They have totally wanted this from the word go. They have no care for Western society. Everybody that probably does care doesn't run for office, so it doesn't change anything. And you're not going to change anything now because it's so much corruption that you will never, ever get whites reelected in those areas. It's just never going to happen. And even the whites you see in those areas that are elected are not white. They're actually black. They act black. They probably are in with some kind of sex slavery. They're probably allowing prostitution rings to be ran in them hotels in those cities. There's probably drug affiliation within those communities. So they're just as corrupt as the black leaders in those communities. And we know they're corrupt because if they wasn't corrupt, these cities wouldn't look look like a nuclear bomb went off in them, okay? I mean, you can go into some areas where it literally looks like a nuclear bomb went off in these areas. And it's a sad fact, people, but cancel culture, if you keep accepting what's on TV, if you keep watching what's on TV, if we keep funding these people, if we keep buying from these people, knowing what we know about them, we are just destroying more and more of our culture. We might as well be digging our graves as we speak. We are digging our graves as we speak. And it's a sad thing because Western society was such a great society, but we've had very bad, rebellious children that turned into adults that are now running this country into the ground. And they are loving every minute of it. They are smiling while you see your nation get burned to the ground. The only question I can ask is, who should love the country more? The people that know that their grandfathers fought in wars for this country, their great-great-great-grandfathers fought for wars in this country. But if you're sitting there on your couch, sitting over there in your office, thinking cancel culture is just a meme, it's just going to go away. Well, like I said, it's been here for 90 years and it's only gotten stronger. And believe me, it won't be long, just like people said in ancient times, Germany, I should say, Nazi Germany, they said that they canceled throughout all the laws, all the rights, and then came for the people. Well, guess what, people? You're right there. You're right there at that moment where they are canceling all the laws, canceling all the culture, everything. And the only thing left is to come get you and put you away. And believe me, it is very much on their minds because they hate, like I said, they hate, whether you hate them or not, they hate you with a passion. They want to kill you. They want to destroy you. Look how many people they are destroying right now with a vaccine through mass media telling you need to go get it. Look how many people are being destroyed each day by suicide, by all these different means, by cars, by everything, by all these different diseases that are here now, because this cancel culture has accepted nothing but evil. I promise you, if this country was ran by Christian-oriented, real Christian people, even with everything we have right now, you would see a whole different world in the sense of what is going on with people's health and people's love and people's hearts. It would be a change, a total irrevocable. It would be almost like when Donald Trump got into the presidency. There was light and day from him and Obama. If there was people voted into these places that are actually Christians, that actually stand up, have backbone, and ain't afraid to die for their beliefs, for their country, for the people within those states that they're in, then you would see so much of an influx of this poverty and poorness going away, and probably even the diseases and everything, because diseases run rampant where corruption and everything. Look at what happened to David. David did a corrupt thing, and guess what happened? Many people died because of his lack of judgment, and he allowed Satan into his life. Now, let me ask you, how many times do you think Satan's getting in and destroying the lives of those that are innocent, but at the same time, it's still happening. Plagues are still happening in these cities. Look at Flint, Michigan. Look what happened to them. All them people got poisoned by the water. Look at all the drugs that is a plague. It is a plague. Drugs are a plague in this country. They're not just an addiction problem. It is a plague problem. It is totally a plague of what is going on because we have allowed wicked rulers to rule in these cities. Wicked rulers, I say, wicked. It would be better off if you threw them all out, physically threw them all out into the streets and let the mob take them than to keep these rulers in power. For they are nothing but wicked, and they are just going to continue causing this culture, which we all know is wanting to cancel us in the end. Cancel the real patriots of this nation and around this world. They're trying to cancel you in Australia. They're trying to cancel you in South America. They're trying to cancel you in Canada. They're trying to cancel you in Europe. They want to cancel your culture. They want to bring in a wicked ruler to rule over you and become just as wicked as all the other rulers have become in this world. Do not let it happen. It is time to say no to cancel culture. It is time to get off the bandwagon of this society and of this culture, unless you want to go down with it, unless you want to be found guilty with it. Because guess what? There is a lot of people that are going to be found guilty in the last days of traveling along with this culture and with this society. I hope that this message would bring a new awakening to the people out there, that you that are strong in your faith and in God and have money and have a way to utilize it, then utilize it for the good. Go and try for election in these cities that are being destroyed. Be a light in this dark and evil area. And I say it like this: be as level-headed as a lamb, but be as an aggressive as a lion. I hope that this message blesses y'all. I hope y'all have a great weekend, and I hope that you would enjoy the rest of these messages that I've given in these podcasts. I thank you again for coming and hearing from Proud of It podcast. Thank y'all. Y'all have a wonderful day.